Welcome again to Bloomerang Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Diana. I'll be helping to answer questions behind the scenes, but our main presenter today to talk about identifying major gifts prospect is our resident database consultant, Di Cox. We are also known as Di Squared or Diana Squared. So I'm so happy to have her with us and share her knowledge and expertise with all of us. Thanks for being here, Di.
Hi, Diana. How are you?
Good. It is feeling refreshed from the long weekend, so that's always nice.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Like Diana said, my name is also Diana. I go by Di here. And today we are going to be talking about identifying major gift prospects. So give me just a second. I'll get my screen shared and we'll get started. All right. Can everybody see?
I can see your screen.
Perfect. All right. So the agenda today, it's pretty simple. We're going to be building some reports in Bloomerang, but I kind of wanted to really start at the basics here. So what is a major gift? And then we're going to talk about the difference between major gifts and transformational gifts. We will also talk about three kind of main ways to identify major gift prospects. There are, of course, other ways from the three that I'll be talking about. But if you are really just getting started and you need to start somewhere, this is a great place to get started with those three. And then kind of what's next. So we've identified them. We have our little list. What do we do with it? And then we will, of course, discuss some resources and we'll have live Q&A. And I will be popping into the Bloomerang database. I have a couple of reports to share with you. A couple I'll build live, a couple I'll just kind of go through. So first, what is a major gift? The easiest definition is a major gift is the largest gift an organization can reasonably expect to receive. That word reasonably is important. We'll come back to it. But each organization is going to have a different definition of a major gift. Some organizations might say, $500 or $1,000 is a major gift for them. Some organizations in the world might say that $1 million is a major gift. I've personally worked with organizations like that. Anywhere in between, anywhere lower than that, anywhere higher than that, it's fine. It's just what a reasonable expectation is for a large gift. So you guys should be able to set that benchmark. It might take a bit of a discussion, might take a bit of looking through your database, but every single fundraiser, whether you're a major gifts officer, just a member of your dev team, a solicitor, everybody should be aware of that number. So make sure that you talk about that with your team and make sure that, again, that reasonable number is in there. So a good place to start is 5% of your donors can and will give at that level. So if your number is $1,000, that's perfectly fine. And you can scale this whether you're a large organization or a small organization. So even if you don't have a major gifts officer, a formal program, formal moves management steps, that's okay. You can pick one or two people and start working on that relationship and solicit major gifts. So the difference between a major gift and transformational gift, in my opinion, is the word reasonable. So again, that major gift, those are the largest gifts your organization can reasonably expect to receive. They are great boosts for annual giving. You may not get one every year, but when you do get one, that's great. Transformational gifts are unreasonably large gifts. So they're investments. These are the kind of gifts that can really truly impact the long-term livelihood of your organization. So on the smaller scale, if $1,000 is what you guys would consider to be a major gift, a $10,000 or even a $15,000 gift is probably going to fund your programming for a couple of years at least. It might even allow you to bring in another part-time staff person to help out with what's happening. For the mid-size organizations and larger organizations, it goes from there. So that could be seed money for an endowment fund. It can really radically impact your program offerings. So now instead of offering one or two, you can add from your wish list of what you wish you can do. Transformational gifts may even be seed money for some different capital campaign projects. So if everyone in your office really needs new technology and you need $15,000 to do that, that could outfit your entire staff with brand new technology. It can also be, the beginning part of a more traditional capital campaign. So building updates or just a building. So that's really that difference. And I think that it's important to be aware of those differences when you're going into a major gift program. You should not expect those gifts that are giant and radically going to impact your organization frequently. What you should be looking for are the more frequent major gifts. So getting into a routine of being able to make those asks. That's what you're really looking to do. So this is a really important statistic. 88% of nonprofit giving comes from just 12% of your donors. So I'm going to let that sink in for a second. 12% of your donor base. So think about everyone who gives to you in a year. 88% of that funding is coming from 12% of donors. This is why it's so important to identify who these people are, to really, really build out those relationships and then steward those major gifts after you receive them, so they'll continue to give to you and they will continue to give major gifts, hopefully taking it to the point of a transformational gift, whether it's during their lifetime or as part of legacy giving in their will. So there are three main ways to identify major donors. And again, there are others, but this is, we need to start identifying some. What do we do? So the first one is institutional knowledge. Your staff should know who your donors are. You should be talking to them at events. You should be talking to them during first-time donor calls, asking questions, really getting to know your donors. So you are going to know who in your donor database has the capacity to be able to give. You should also know the ones who have the capacity that really like you guys. That's going to kind of be the base level of your major donor prospects. In fact, once you start to look at your donors, you might find that many of these people actually already qualify as major donors. So again, it's getting them to continue to give at that higher level, to make multi-year pledges, whatever your organization's level is. So that's the institutional knowledge piece. The second one is to leverage your board relationships. So I know not everybody has boards that are working boards or boards that are fundraising boards. That's a talk for a different time. But at the very least, your board members should be bringing in money. So whether it is through their individual giving or soliciting gifts from family, friends, matching gifts through their companies, whatever it is, your board should be out there and be working for your organization to bring funding in. So really leverage those relationships, encourage your board to invite again, like high capacity individuals to your events or to volunteer days. However your board is working with you, that's definitely the second way. And then the third way is to pull some top donor reports, which we're going to go in and do in a minute. So we're actually going to be looking at 4 reports today. One is going to be based on cumulative giving. One is going to be based on individual gift size. So the individual gift size is what I would use to pull people who are probably already major donors or people who have been major donors in the past. You can also pull a list of people close to that number that you think is a major gift. So for example, if you think that $25,000 is going to be your major gift size, you can pull a report of everybody who gave at least one gift of $20,000. Scaling that again, if $2,500 is your major gift size, you can pull a list of everybody who's given $2,000. So you can play with those lists and see where you're at. And then the third and fourth are going to be based on the engagement level and the generosity score in Bloomerang. So those are Bloomerang specific reports that we're going to take a look at. So let's go dive into the database. All right, Diana, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to kind of start back at institutional knowledge. For those of you who know my classes, my database is a Star Wars database. So we're going to kind of dive into some Star Wars stuff here for a minute. And then taking a turn that I don't normally do, I pulled some real people into my database so that I can show you those generosity score reports. So I'll explain that in a minute. But first of all, I can take a look at some institutional knowledge. So when talking to my staff about people in our database that I think might be really good, major donor candidates, one of the people that I decided to look at was Wedge Antilles. So some information that I know about Wedge here. I know that he comes from a little bit of money. I also know that he fought in the rebellion. And since my organization is the Galaxy Cleanup Project, so we're cleaning up after, galaxy-wide wars, this is someone who already has an affinity for our organization. You can see here that the engagement level is warm. So this is someone who likes us. You can see that he's made some pledges and pledge payments. He's also married to Nora, and Nora is also a former pilot of the rebellion. So as a couple, they have a lot going on for them. And I know that he came from a little bit of money. So his parents, Jagged and Xena, they owned a fueling depot in the Gus Tetra Inner System Market Station, which hovered above Corellia, which is the planet he's from. So I know that there's some generational wealth there. I know they have an affinity for us. Their engagement level is warm. So this is definitely somebody that I would put on my list of people to start cultivating, get that engagement level up higher, and start asking for a larger gift. So that's how that institutional knowledge works. Next is leveraging our board. So Sabine Wren is one of our board members. She is from Mandalore, and she's in Clan Wren. And when I was talking with her and we were going through our database, she let me know that she knows Fen Rao. So Fen Rao, he is the protector of Concord Dawn. So I happen to have Concord Dawn in here as an organization, which is debatable, but we're going to call it an organization. And so you can see here that Fen Rao is the primary contact for Concord Dawn. So Sabine, since she knows Fen Rao and she is familiar with the organization Concord Dawn, I've asked her to be a solicitor to try to either pull in a major gift from Fen Rao directly, or to work with Fen Rao in conjunction with Concord Dawn to be able to bring that organization in with us and help with our cleanup efforts. So that's how you kind of leverage your board. Your board might know people outside of the database or your Excel spreadsheet, wherever you're at. So they'll be able to go through your list of contacts, take a look at it, say who they know and who they don't know and who they'd be willing to reach out to. And then, of course, bringing in other people not in your database is how you grow that database and grow that circle and that network, and hopefully grow your donations. So we've talked about institutional knowledge and then leveraging your board. So now we're going to take a look at those 4 reports that I talked about. So the first one we're going to look at is the cumulative giving report. So if you're in Bloomerang, we already have a canned report for this. So if you go to new and then start from a template, you're going to see your top donors. So this one is going to rank your donors by total revenue over the last 2 years. This is perfectly acceptable. This is definitely someone that we're, like a pool we're going to look at here. So our top donors, it's showing us their names, it's showing us their 2-year revenue, their lifetime revenue, contact information, and then their status. So I have 17 here that are on our top donor list, and you can see that there's a pretty drastic drop off. So I'm looking for donors that I think could potentially give a lot of money. We've identified as an organization between $20,000 and $25,000 is that amount that we want to look at. So I'm going to look at the top part of this report here. So these four. This one is a long shot. So this is somebody that I will probably be asking for a major gift for over the next few years. So this is not somebody that's going to be giving us a major gift anytime soon. Kevin here has given us a total of 20,000, in his lifetime, 16,000 in the last 2 years. So this is definitely somebody who would fit the bill. And then you can see Din and Boba Fett here have both given a significant amount of money in the last 2 years. And then, Din here even more in his lifetime. So clearly those are our top two donors. There's a lot going on there. So that's going to kind of be my list. So I have four people here, one who's a bit of a long shot, one that is, pretty ripe for it, and then two that I should probably be asking for a whole lot more than $25,000. So this is getting into transformational territory. So those are going to be long sit downs. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to see, what a multi-year pledge might look like from them. So this report, again, you can scale it for small shop, focus on a couple. Obviously your database won't be a sample database like mine. So you might have 17 very legitimate people in here who would be your potential list. So that's how we look at a cumulative giving report. And for those of you who are in Bloomerang, if you wanted to save this report, you can come into details and then we could name this report. So we can call this Top Donors Report, Potential Major Giving. And then when I save this, it's going to appear in my report list. And then if I decide to go back in and repull this report, it's just going to repull exactly like the template. So any changes I make to this won't save on the template level, but it will save in my report. So let's look at people who have already given probably at that $25,000 level. So this is one I had already built out. So we looked at people who have given $25,000 as a single gift. So what I did, I pulled it by constituent. If you have households in your database, pull it by household. But I looked at any individual gift of $25,000 and I wanted to see just the revenue amount. So I'm not interested in people who made pledges of more than that. I want to see people whose cash in the door is at least $25,000. And unsurprising, based on our last report, we have two. So we have Din here and we have Boba. I added a couple of things here. So I added their engagement level and their generosity score. Since these are fake people, they don't have a generosity score, but you can see that their engagement with our organization is on fire. And so I pulled that, I pulled their lifetime revenue and their latest transaction date and amount. So you can see that Boba's latest transaction date and amount was $20,000. And we can see over here that Din made a much larger gift than that. So again, these are conversations that we can have with these two. They are already major donors for us. And we just want to really steward that relationship and work with them to continue giving at high levels when possible. So the next two reports we're going to build live, and this is that deviation. So donor search can only scan real people. So I have added in a few real people to my database so that we could get donor search to actually scan them. So once I build these reports, I'll explain the difference between engagement and generosity, but that's what we're going to base this next report on. So we are going to build a new constituent report, and we are going to find some major donor candidates based on high engagement, so they really like us, and high generosity, which means they are giving in the nonprofit space and or they have the capacity to give. So I'm going to add engagement. And I only want those who are hot and on fire. So I just want the people that are very, very highly engaged with us. And I want people who have that high generosity score. So hot and on fire for generosity. So you can now see this gave us two different people. So Din and Boba each had those high engagement scores, but they didn't have a high generosity score because we couldn't scan them. But if we go into Kevin's record here, we can see a really high engagement level and a really high generosity score. So as an explanation, engagement level is based on data you're entering into Bloomerang. So this is based on giving, and it's not just giving amounts, it's also giving trends. So it's looking at year over year giving, upgrades, downgrades, all of that sort of thing. And it's looking at anything that's been added into interactions. So, if they're on your newsletter list, every time they get a newsletter and they open it, that's going to count towards the engagement score. Every time you sent an acknowledgement letter, every time they call you and you make a record of it, every time you call them and make a record of it, everything that you're entering in is going to feed into that engagement level. The generosity score, on the other hand, is calculated by donor search. And it is looking at a couple of things. So it is looking at wealth capacity, and it's looking at giving in the nonprofit sector that is public information. So generally what they are pulling from are honor roll lists of donors, any annual reports that have been published publicly, any sorts of announcements that have been made, so either in the newspaper, press releases, anything like that. And so it's going to take a look at all of that, and it's going to calculate based on their giving capacity and what they're doing in the nonprofit space. It will also take a look at political giving, which is interesting. That is a wealth marker. It is not necessarily a marker of giving, but it is important to note that they look at that as well. And then they calculate a score. We use the same scale that they do. It's cold, cool, warm, hot, and on fire. So you can see here that Kevin has an engagement level of on fire with our organization and a generosity score of on fire out in the nonprofit space. So this is somebody who would be a good candidate for a major donor for our organization. So we can build this out. We can also add some additional columns that might be helpful here. So for example, we can look at the engagement level and the generosity, and we can look at lifetime revenue. And then I like the latest gift, date, and amount. We could also do largest if that's information that you would be interested in too. So any columns that you need to add here for this, you can. So we can see that Jay here is hot and Kevin is on fire, and their generosity is both listed as on fire. We can take a look at that lifetime revenue and their latest and greatest information here. So that is how you pull a report based on the engagement level and the generosity both being high. So I would call this report major donor prospects or major gift prospects. And then the other report that I think is helpful to pull is a cultivation list. So these are people with that high generosity score in Bloomerang, but they have a low engagement level with you. So they're doing things in the nonprofit space, they're in your database, but they're doing little to nothing with you. So I'm going to pull a report, constituent again. And again, I'm going to be looking for generosity that's high. So we're going to do hot or on fire, but I want their engagement to be low. So their engagement, we're going to do cold, cool, and warm. And so you can see there's one person here. So again, I can add some columns. I can see what their engagement level is. I can see what their generosity score is, lifetime, and then we'll just do latest for this one. We can also take out some of these other columns if we decide we don't really need the contact information. So I will delete these columns. You can always add them in later, but when you're looking at a longer list, it might be helpful to get rid of some of this so that you can just quickly see what's going on. So this person has never given to our organization. Their engagement level is cold, but their generosity score is on fire. So this is someone that we have just overlooked completely, and we shouldn't have. And now we know that we've overlooked them. So now this is someone, to take a look at, see if your board members know this person, see if anyone on staff knows this person. If not, take a look at, are they on a list somewhere? Are they on, your newsletter list? Are they even receiving your appeals? Do we know why this person's in the database at all? So start asking some questions about this person. And if you cannot identify anywhere where a relationship went south, this is someone that you should start cultivating. So this is someone who should be invited to your next event. This is someone who should be added to your appeals list. This is someone who should be getting your newsletter. Start reaching out to this person, start building that relationship, and see if you can pull them into the fold, because this is someone who could be giving to you and giving a significant amount, and instead they've given nothing. So this is that really good report to see who you've missed. A couple of other things you could do with this report, if you have more than one person in it, is you can sort by things like the engagement level. So group by the column, and it's going to tell you everyone who's cold, everyone who's cool, everyone who's warm. You could also instead group by the generosity score. So if you have a really long list here, you probably want to start with your on fire, and then start working your way down the list. So again, that kind of goes into how you can scale this to make it workable for your organization. And depending on how many people are appearing on this list, make sure that it's not overwhelming to you and your staff. And then I would just save this list as Cultivation List and say major donors. So based on these lists, we have identified 4 really good potential major donors and 1 that we really need to be working on that relationship. So frankly, this is a really nice place to start, since we don't have any sort of formal major gift process or anything in place. 5 people is a lot of people to manage. So 5 is a great number for us. We can split that up. We already know one of our board members is going to be working with FEN, so our team doesn't have to handle that one directly, just kind of indirectly and working with our board member there. And then we can really focus on those other 4. So let's go back to our slides. So I'm sure at this point you guys are saying, great, we've identified it. Now what do we do with it? So the first thing is adding an attribute to your identified prospects. I know I've asterisked this here, but I really, really need to make this clear. Attributes are basically just a way to codify a constituent's relationship with your nonprofit. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. I have a whole list down here of different things that people have called it. I've seen more than this, but this is just kind of a place to start. So I would recommend an attribute for major donor prospects. So once we've identified that we're going to start working with those 5, we can go into the database, go into their record, and flag them as our major donor prospects. More clearly, though, since 2 of them are major donors, we should have an attribute for major donors. So 2 of them are already major donors. We should have that attribute listed there. And then the other 3 should be listed as major donor prospects. Once they become a major donor, then we will update that attribute to say major donor. Additionally, you need to assign your solicitors. So that's kind of what we already talked about. Our board member Sabine is going to be the solicitor for FENRAO. There are a couple of different ways to assign solicitors. Some people do it as relationships. So the reciprocal relationship would be something along the lines of solicitor and major donor prospect. You can also create a separate uh, custom constituent field for solicitor, and then you can tag whoever the solicitor is for that organization or individual that way. So there's no right or wrong. You can do both. If you really only have one or two people and you know that the solicitor is always just going to be your executive director, you don't really need to do that step. So again, scale for your organization. And then the other two things that you should do, the first one is consider a batch screen. So I'm going to click back over to Bloomerang for this one for a second to kind of show you a little bit about why that's important. So two things here. So if we go into Kevin's record, you can see the generosity score here is on fire. If you click view in donor search, one of three things is going to happen. If you've already had a batch screen, it's going to take you to a secondary Bloomerang page with some additional information, and then you'll click into donor search. If you've not run a batch screen, it's going to take you straight to donor search, and it's going to pull up the page specific for Kevin here. Or if you're like me and in a sample database, or if you've not purchased donor search, when you click on it, it's going to pop up and say, do you want to know more about donor search? If you click on I have questions, your customer success person will reach out to you. If you click on sign me up, I think they still reach out to you, but it's going to kind of process it through the database a little faster. I'm going to click not right now because it's a sample database. So right now I can't see why Kevin's information is listed as on fire. I can't see any of this additional information. So if you have donor search, you can see the additional information, you can update it, you can push the updates into Bloomerang, but the batch screen is going to unlock some additional options for us. So for example, on the cultivation list, you will now be able to both filter and add columns for generosity details. So if I start to type in generosity, you're going to see this details list. Right now, when I click on it, it's going to tell me the same thing. You need a batch screen. The let's talk is the same as I have some questions. It's going to send it over to your customer support person. But what it does is it gives you information on some additional topics. So it will let you see their major gift likelihood, their annual gift likelihood, wealth capacity, their largest donation that's been reported through donor search to any nonprofit. You're going to be able to see information on how strong their profile is, and a few other things. And that can really help to do a couple of things. One, whittle down that list. If you say a major gift is $25,000, you don't want to see anyone on your major gift list who can't give at least $25,000. So you could base it on some wealth capacity as, at least $250,000, for example, and it'll shorten that list for you. You also may not want to see people who have a major gift likelihood of below average. So they might give, but they're not going to give a major gift. So you can weed those people out. It can also be helpful, depending on how robust their giving record is, to be able to see what their, largest major gift is to another nonprofit, so that you can make sure that you're asking within the correct ballpark for that individual. So it's basically just going to make your reporting a lot more robust and allow you to filter this information down. So that is definitely something you should consider. I will also say, if you are anywhere near a capital campaign, I would really recommend a batch screen. That can really help you to identify, those pledges that you want to come in before you make it public. If you're kind of even ramping down, you're getting towards the end, that can help you to specifically target people who have the ability to get you across that finish line. So that's going to be pretty important as well. And then The other thing you should be thinking about is creating a moves management plan. So Bloomerang absolutely has a way to do that. There is an Academy video on this. It's recorded and you can get to it through the knowledge base. I'm also going to be teaching it live on Thursday. So that's that part 2 Diana was talking about. So we will go through and talk through the whole process, what fields you need for it, what the workflow looks like, all of those different things. And that way you can actually track in Bloomerang where you're at in the process, who is in charge of that move plan. You can break out your portfolio that way through Bloomerang. So that's for anybody who wants a more formal way of managing their major gifts. And then lastly here, I've added some resources. So I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of this. We also do have coaching available. So if you want to go through a lot of what we just went through, but on a more one-on-one level, you can sign up for the prospects coaching class. Coaching hours are $200 an hour through Bloomerang. And if you have phone support, you get a free coaching hour every year. So you could use your phone support coaching hour for that as well. And then if you do a batch screen, you automatically get a coaching hour with it. So we'll go in and show you how to use that information. If you already have reports built out, we'll help you beef them up. And if you don't have any built out yet, we'll help you build them, and then we'll pull in all of that yummy batch screen information that you now have. All right, and I think we are ready for Q&A time, Diana, if you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Di. That was a lot of great information as usual. And we do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First, can some gifts be transformational without being a significantly larger amount? For example, a donor gives $5,000 specifically for a new software. This would not normally be a transformational gift, but it is specifically for something that we would not or could not have purchased otherwise.
Sure. So if they're giving like that, then yes, you could term that as a transformational gift. If $5,000 is your major gift level anyway, though, it's probably just a restricted major gift, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Great. Most of our major donors give through their brokerage firms or donor advised funds. So how do we find them since they're working with soft credits rather than raised or revenue amounts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just include, instead of doing a revenue amount like I did, you can just have that in there. You can also pull reports specifically looking at soft credits. So if your soft credits are primarily DAFs, that can be really helpful. DAFs and matching gifts. That can show you who is, again, well engaged, has capacity getting those matches, and so that can give you that list of people to pull out as well.
Awesome. So Bloomerang wise, if you're looking to report on that, the field that you want is type or transaction type, and you can include any transaction types that you want. So if you want revenue plus soft credits, that would be your donations, pledge payments, recurring donation payments, plus soft credits. Cool, thanks. If a prospect will be solicited by a staff member, but a board member will be key to the solicitation, how would you indicate this in the database?
Sure. A lot of people will do things like primary solicitor and secondary solicitor, or if there's a board member contact, then you can add that as a relationship in there, and then just note very specifically add a note on their profile saying this person's the solicitor, this board member is going to be the secondary contact for it.
Awesome. Let's go back a little bit and explain what a soft credit is, please.
Sure. So a hard credit is for anybody who has actually given the gift and is going to be getting potentially getting a tax letter for it. So if it's tax deductible, it's a hard credit. So if I give you a check for $500, that's a hard credit. A soft credit comes in to anybody who's instrumental in securing the gift, but is not getting tax credit and did not directly hand you the money. So for example, if I had Bloomerang match my $500, Bloomerang would be the hard credit, but you would soft credit me that $500 as well. So that'll show that the total impact of my gift is $1,000, but I only actually gave $500. So that's the same thing that you do with things like DAFs. So it's coming from Charles Schwab. So the check needs to go under Charles Schwab because you're not giving your donor a tax letter for that gift, that $10,000 that came in. Charles Schwab is handling that. So you can send an acknowledgement thank you letter, but you're not sending that tax letter. They've already received that. So you would soft credit the gift.
Awesome. And as we mentioned earlier, that's a good thing to remember as well when you're running your reports. A lot of questions that we get sometimes is you get unexpected results in the reports. Check what transactions are being pulled into the report. Is it including everything? Is it just including donations or pledges or soft credits? So that's something you want to check for. And you can filter for whichever one you'd like to see. Di, can we go back into your database and can you show us the filters for how you filtered your second report? That's the major donor prospects, 2.5K, I believe.
Yes. So what I did, and I can just start this one from scratch again, so we know who's in there. So I came in, I am looking for individuals. I'm not looking for giving. So I came in and why is this not? I don't know what it's doing. There we go.
Our reports are still recovering from the 3-day weekend.
So since I'm looking for individuals, I'm going to go to New, Build a Report from Scratch, Constituents. And then I'm looking for constituents who have given a really specific kind of giving. So I came in, again, normally I would do household for this, especially if you enter giving under the person who signs the check, you might have giving from both parties in the household. So household is what I would recommend. If you always put it under head of household, constituent will be fine. But we are going to add a filter for has transactions. So I'm looking for individual constituents who have specific transaction types. So has transactions. And then I did transactions, specific transactions, because I don't want anyone with just any transaction. And then under include here, I did amount. And then you can put a range, so individual gifts between a certain amount. But what I wanted to do was a minimum of $25,000. So again, you can put in any total here. But if we do 25,000 and press OK, and then OK, this is going to give us anybody who has more than $25,000. So again, I did this one by household. I did the other one individually, which is the difference here. And why doing things by household can be really important. Why is this still doing this? Okay, well, like Diana said, our reports are still recovering from the long weekend. So here's our report. Let me go into the other one and see what I did differently.
Before we do that, I wanted to point out as well, so by default, that amount will pull in from all types of transactions. Here with this report, Di is showing us that it's including revenue amount, so it's only pulling in those revenue type transactions.
So that's what I did differently. Yeah,
exactly. So your revenue type transactions would be your donations, pledge payments, and recurring donation payments. But if you would like to include your soft credits in there, you would just need to add a filter for, instead of using revenue, add a filter for type so that you can make sure that those soft credits are counting toward that total as well. So it depends on what you want to count toward that total.
Yep. So now that I'm adding revenue amount, and again, just doing it by constituent, again, revenue amount gives you a range. I just want higher than a penny. So I don't want pledges that have balances on them if it's less than $25,000. So the other thing I did on it is I excluded types that are organizations because I wanted to look at just individuals. So there's 4 here. You can see 2 of them are organizations. There we go. So there's my same report.
Awesome. And while we're in a report, can you show us how to reorganize columns in the report, please?
Yeah, so you can do a couple of things. So if you click on primary street, for example, you have the options to group by it, show the primary address or specific addresses. There's a lot you can do in here. So I can just delete these if I want to. The other thing I can do is rearrange them. So let's say I want these address ones in here, but I want email first. So I just click on it and then I can pull and it'll create a gap. So I can drop it wherever I want to. And then as I add additional columns, account number, attributes, we'll add those too. I can move these to wherever I want as well. And I can group by this column. There's only going to be one, but that's fine. So you can see there's only one in each of those 2. So that's how you group, rearrange, delete, add. And then some fun things, since we're talking about it, if I want to do has transactions, for example, I can do things like show the sum of the revenue amount of all transactions. And then that's going to show me the sum of the revenue amount of all transactions, or I can do all transactions within a certain date range. So if I click on here, I can say specific transactions and I can do date is between, and I'm going to say last year and this year. So 1/1/2020, and I'll do 12/31/2021. So this will just continue to build through the year. And then on top of that, I can change the column headers. So if I don't want it to say that because that's not helpful, I can say giving between 2020 to 2021. And that gives us that giving.
Awesome. And as a reminder too, you can again, if you're looking for different types of transactions, you can filter that, what's going to be showing in that column as well.
Absolutely.
This is kind of I'm not sure how to answer this question because it might be a bigger question.
Okay.
Is there training for how to use donor search? Or I guess the question would be, how can we use the donor search information that's already in Bloomerang? And that also depends on what kind of donor search you have.
Yeah, so the short answer to it is yes. The long answer is there are different levels of donor search that you can purchase. So with certain levels, you can just do a free training through donor search and they'll teach you how to use their software. I think that's if you have their suite of tools. If you don't have their suite of tools, Bloomerang does kind of a smaller coaching on donor search and Bloomerang. So we'll actually click in. If you have donor search, we can click in and show you how to use the software in conjunction with Bloomerang. So we're not digging into the back end on donor search. We're not going to be able to show you how to print and pull lists and do any of that kind of stuff. But we can show you that donor search profile, show you how to edit and modify it, what everything means, and then updating it in Bloomerang. As to what additional information you can pull in Bloomerang, anybody, even without donor search like me, you can use that generosity score. So you can use that in filters. You can add that as a column in your reports. Once you've done a batch screen is when you can do those additional things with the donor search information. So that's when we can pull our report of high engagement, high generosity, and they're likely to give a major gift to get that really tight list of people in your database who are really great major giving candidates based on all of the additional information. And then of course, institutional knowledge, that's huge. So if you do the batch screen, you can pull in the additional information. Anyone can take a look at that generosity score, but you have to have any level of donor search. You have to have donor search to be able to click over and take a look at what that additional giving means and how they got to that number.
And I did want to mention a note here from Liesel about be careful relying too much on donor search. Advise taking, I advise everyone to take all of it with a grain of salt and search themselves to see how accurate donor search is.
Yeah, and that's a huge, really important note. Donor search is looking at publicly available records. So, for example, if you don't donate or you don't publish your donors giving and you don't publish a donor, like an honor roll list of donors and you don't publish your annual report, none of your giving is going to be in donor search. Additionally, if you have really major donors in your database, it's possible that they're giving anonymously to other nonprofits. So they may show no additional giving through the generosity score, and that's because there was nothing that had to be done through any sort of filings. So again, just that's where that institutional knowledge really comes into play and how well you know your donors. So you might have someone with a lower generosity score and you're saying, no, I know they give. Great, add them to your attributes list of a potential major donor. That's that institutional knowledge. Move on, find other people you've missed.
Absolutely. You can also send copies of your reports to Donor Search if you want that data corrected so that they'll have that as well. Also, there is kind of a delay between when the reports are available and when the information is available in Donor Search. So as a general rule, it's usually about a year or two. They're pulling from data that's about a year or could be up to 2 years behind as well. We have a question here. How much information do you need to have about a potential donor in order for a generosity score to be calculated?
Great question. Name and I think it's state and city and zip code, correct, Diana?
It's technically a U.S. state or U.S. address, but the more specific you can get with the address, the better your results are going to be. If you have a John Smith from California, I don't know how many John Smiths are going to be in California. So if you can get the name and the full U.S. address, that's going to get better results for you.
They also will not scan organizations. I will point that out too. It's only individuals.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there other tips on how to recognize or identify major gifts prospects that have not given a gift or a cumulative gift ranging in your criteria of major giving?
So, yeah, the higher the engagement score and the higher the generosity score is going to be the other way to look at that. So like that last report that we pulled, that my person had no giving. I'll pull that up again. They had no giving, but they had that really high generosity score. So they are giving in the nonprofit space. So we can say that for sure. They're just not giving to us and they've never given. So I would build a cultivation list, and that's what it is. These are your long-term prospects. The chances of Bren here getting an email from me or a letter from me asking for a $25,000 gift and them actually giving one is probably not going to happen. They have no relationship with our organization. So that's making sure that they're on somebody's radar and that you can begin to cultivate that relationship. So that's kind of that long game there. You would hope within the next couple of years, Bren would really be on board, like your mission, like your staff, be excited about what you're doing and ready to step up and give.
Wonderful, thank you. Can we clarify soft credits a little more? Who gets the hard credit and who gets the soft credit?
The person or organization who wrote the check gets the hard credit. So if it comes from Charles Schwab, it's their DAF. Charles Schwab gets the hard credit. your donor gets the soft credit. If it's a matching gift, their organization gets the hard credit, they get the soft credit. Sometimes people will soft credit solicitors as well. So again, a board member, if you have standards for board giving and they need to, raise X amount of money a year, whether it's they write a single check or they get their friends and family to donate, you can soft credit your board members that way so that you can see how much impact your board has had on your organization. So, your board members, mom might write the check, mom gets the hard credit, board member gets that soft credit.
Right. What about giving through QCD? We've had questions from a donor recently about receiving a receipt for a retirement distribution.
That's a good question. I think that probably depends on the type of account it's coming from, whether it was pre-tax or post-tax, and whether or not it qualifies for a tax credit through nonprofit giving. So you would have to look that up and see what that looks like. Sorry, I can't be more clear about that.
No worries. And actually, while we're talking about, we've talked about donor search quite a bit. I'm going to launch a poll. Please let us know if you're interested to learn more about donor search, or if you're interested in a batch screen or any of our other services as well. If you would like to have personal coaching specifically on major gifts or other topics, please let us know in the poll. We have a question here from Abby. Can household generosity report and constituent household report be different?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm looking as well. I was creating the report with engagement level is low and generosity is hot. And there's different results if the report is running by household versus constituents.
Yes, great question. So in Bloomerang, so donor search runs it by household. So anybody at that address, if you've given a full address, is going to get run and given one score. In Bloomerang, your engagement level is done individually. So one person can be hot, the other one can be cold. So what I would recommend doing, and I'm going to pull up my database for this instead of just launching into an explanation. Let me share again. Can you see it, Diana? Okay. All right. So what I would recommend doing is with your engagement, group by your engagement level, and then do it by, I believe it's descending. So that way, so here's the thing. If you're looking for engagement on the low end, I believe it's descending. If you're looking for engagement on the high end, I believe it's ascending. But what you want to do, and I know this is not a great explanation since there's only one person in here, but what you would do is not look at anybody who falls into the hot or on fire category for this report, because we only want engagement of cool, or warm. Anybody that's on that higher end of that, so that on fire or that hot, means one person in the household is hot or on fire. And we don't want to pull that list for cultivation. They already like you guys. So you would just be looking at the lower end. I actually recommend, if you're looking at the opposite end, so the engagement level is that hot or on fire, don't run it by household, just run it by constituent, because it'll automatically bring those people in, and it doesn't matter if their spouse is cold, because we just want that group of that hot, warm, on fire. So if that makes sense. So depending on who you're looking at, if you're looking at the low end, you're going to exclude the higher end if you're looking by household. If you're looking at just the high end for both, just run it by constituent.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Di, and thank you everyone for being with us today. We're right at about time. But I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have additional comments or additional questions that you might think of later, or classes that you want to suggest, let us know. We're more than happy to take a look at that. Thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with us, learning all about identifying major gifts prospects in your database. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we see you in another Academy class soon. Bye.
Bye.